audibletrial.com/CFRN. That's audibletrial.com/CFRN. And become a part of the audiobook revolution by downloading your free audiobook today. audibletrial.com/CFRN.
Hey, trader, want to get rich quick? Well, good luck with that. If, on the other hand, you actually want to learn how to trade, the place to be is www.cfrn.net. Tune in Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. Eastern for our daily devotional, and then spend the next 3 hours learning how it's done from professional traders who actually trade for a living. That's www.cfrn.net. Every trading day from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern. CFRN, a community of believers who trade for a living.
Good afternoon, traders, and welcome back to the CFRN Emini Futures Cast. This is the daily broadcast of Indeterminate Length, where we discuss all things Emini, along with some really big ideas on the finer points of trading gold, bonds, crude, sugar, the euro, and even T-bills. Joining us today from our studios in Boston, Mr. Michael Bork. From our trading desk in Chicago, Mr. Burton Schlichter. Now, to get things started, let's go to our host and founder in Studio A, overlooking South Mountain, America's largest city park. Here's Dwayne.
Good afternoon. Welcome back. Today is Thursday, 12th day of November, 2020. Thanks so much for joining us. Whoever you are, wherever you are, we're just glad to have you right here, right now. If you can't see the screen I have up, go to our homepage at CFRN.net. On the right-hand side of the page, click the big microphone, follow the instructions. You'll be registered in about 30 seconds. That'll give you one-click access to the show each and every day. On the days that you're out of the office, away from your desktop, not to worry, just point your browser, any internet-connected browser, just point it to CFRN.net/live, and there you'll find a live, real-time simulcast of the show as it unfolds. Just won't have access to the chat box. Now, typically we're streaming live at this time on YouTube, on Facebook, and Twitter, but somehow the streaming software seems to have a hitch in its giddy up connecting to YouTube. So that's just one more reason why you should do as I said. Go to our homepage at CFRN.net and click that big microphone and follow the instructions. Then you won't have to worry about trying to watch it on YouTube. But it is aggravating because the last few days it has worked absolutely perfectly. And you're probably saying, well, what'd you do different? Nothing. Not a thing. Not a thing. So, sorry, YouTube folks. Maybe it'll catch hold in a minute. Let's open with a word of prayer. Heavenly Father, we thank you for today. We thank you for everyone gathered here now. Thank you that you know each of us by name and have caused us to walk with you. We say that we are dependent on you and our trust is in you completely. As we surrender ourselves to you, we ask that you would come by your Holy Spirit and inspire our hearts and minds today. We ask that you would come and fill our lives with your love, fill our conversations with your grace and truth, and fill this meeting with your presence, whether we're streaming live on YouTube or not. We We ask this for your glory and your praise. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. Well, happy Thursday. It is already. Let me give you the numbers from around the world, put things in perspective. Now, last night, early on in the Globex session, the market gave us every kind of indication that we were headed into a very nice trending type of move, and then it stopped. In fact, about 3 minutes after I put into the discussion group, hey guys, looks like we're headed into a very tradable session. Market reversed, went back to the same spot it's been flatlining at, and I mean, there is some movement. Let me give you the numbers. Again, these are the cash markets, indices from around the world. Currently, the Dow down 139 points, NASDAQ up 7, S&P 500 down 14, the Russell 2000 down 11. Now, here's a little tidbit. Those four that I just called out, the Dow, the NQ, S&P, and the Russell, the indices, those four tend to travel as a pack. And anytime one of those is bucking the trend, so to speak, in other words, when I give you these numbers, they should either be all red or all green. And even though the NASDAQ's only positive by 6, you've got the Dow down 139, you got the S&P 500 down 15. So there's not conviction across the board. And that's really what you need for good trending moves, is conviction across the board. And you might say, oh, I don't even trade those markets. Yes, but they hold sway over the whole universe. In the commodity basket, crude oil up 62 cents, trading 42.07 last, gain of 1.5%. Gold up $17.60, trading 18.79.20 last. Silver up 12 cents, trading 24.39 last. In the Asian markets at the close, Nikkei was up 171. Shanghai was down 3.5. Hang Seng fell 57. And in the European markets at the close, FTSE down 43, DAX down 163, CAC down 82. And for the DAX and the CAC, that's a drop of roughly 1.25 to 1.5%, respectively. So we do have a mixed day in Asia. We've got a red day in the UK. And because the NASDAQ's positive, we have a mixed radio Thursday here in the US of A. At this point, today's Thursday, Dr. Tom Day. And I think John's still under the weather. I haven't spoken to him this morning, so I sent Dr. Tom a message. If he wants to come early, he can. But for now, we'll go to Michael if he's ready, and we'll get a recap of everything that happened this morning in the live training room. Our live training room is open every day for all of our students from 9:30 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. Eastern. That's where Michael meticulously walks you through trade after trade, live in real time, putting them on, taking them off, explaining everything, and answering your questions as he moves along. So if you become a CFRN passport holder, that's where you're going to learn the underlying methodology, the underlying strategy, the heartbeat of CFRN. Michael, is that you?
That is me. That is me. Okay. Let me just jump right into it. Okay.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Today is Thursday, the 12th. I took the charts. Yeah, I have the charts.
Oh, okay. Now I can see them. For some reason, I couldn't see them sooner.
Yeah.
Probably because I didn't change my name in the thing. Okay, go ahead. It's all yours. Take it away.
Okay. Here we go. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Today is Thursday, the 12th day of November, 2020. If you're going to read the spreadsheet, you're going to read all the CFTC risk disclosures down at the bottom. Today we made 10 ticks in Crude and 16 ticks on the ES. That put us at plus 300 on the morning session. Today, it took 5 minutes and 1 trade to get to the goal for the day. At that point, we're up $125 a contract. Then we took a total of 9 trades this morning. On the month now, we're at 46.45. That's over 9 trading days, averaging $516 per contract per 2-hour trading day. We're now at our 187th consecutive trading day of getting the goal. And we are at $92,333 on the year. That's over 212 trading days, averaging $435 per contract per 2-hour trading day. Okay. Now, if you have not taken the free trial and you want to take the free trial, go to the home page here at CFRN.net. And right here it says 5-day free trial. Just sign up for the free trial there. And when you do that, we'll see your stuff come through. And I'm sorry, excuse me. We'll see your stuff come through, and we'll get back to you with everything that you need to take advantage of that.
YouTube now streaming as it should have from the beginning. Just thought I'd let you know.
Well, that's good. Okay, so on gold today, we only had 1 trade. It was right here. It was a break-even trade. There were more trades available. I'll go back to them. Okay, I wasn't watching gold so much today. I just really had to focus today. And so I was watching the ES more than anything. But there was a trade right here, a trade right there, a trade here, a trade here, a trade here, all of which I missed. Then I finally jumped in one right here, and I ended up with a break even on it. I said it was going to go up to 81.3, and that's where it went. I thought it was actually going to go a little further. Once it got up to 81.3, it looked like it had a little more to go, but it did get to the 81.3 part anyway. The YBR trade right here, it worked out. And then we got into the break. Today was just really tough trading compared to how it has been. And today was really tough trading. We're still up $300 contract, but that's low compared to what we've been doing. On the euro, we just had this 1 trade right here. Okay. And that's it for that. I'll go here. On crude, we just had this 1 trade right here. We picked up 10 ticks. It looks like there was another trade right in here that I missed. A couple of them, 1 there and 1 there that I missed. And that's it. Okay. The ES. Look at all this chop during the break. That is just nasty. Let me go back to the beginning. Our first trade was right here on the ES, and we picked up 10 ticks on that trade. Then we had a break even there. We had a +1 there to put us at plus 11 ticks. Break even there, break even there. +3 there to put us at +14. And a +2 here to put us at +16. And that was it for the morning session. Look at this chart. This is just nasty. Yeah. Okay. Here we go. Gonna close that. Bring this back up. And this back up. Okay. Here we go. Today, as I said, well, okay, if you're going to read the spreadsheet, you got to read all the CFTC risk disclosures down at the bottom. Today's the 12th day of November, 2020. We picked up 10 ticks in gold and 16 ticks on the ES. Put us at +300 on the morning session. Today it took 5 minutes in one trade to get to the goal for the day. At that point, we're up $125 a contract. And we took a total of 9 trades. So on the month now, we're up $4,645. That's over 9 trading days, averaging $516 per contract per trading day. It's now been 187 consecutive days that I've gotten my goal. And on the year now, we're at $92,333. That's over 212 days, averaging $435 per contract per trading day. Okay. If you have not taken a free trial, go to the homepage here at CFRN.net and just sign up for the free trial. Once we see you signed up, we'll send you all the information you need to get into the room in the morning for 5 consecutive business days. Okay. And see what we do, how we do it, why we do it, and all that. Okay. And with that, I'm going to pass it back out to fabulous Phoenix, Arizona, Studio A overlooking South Mountain, America's largest city park. Dwayne, if you are ready. Okay.
All right, buddy.
What was that?
That's the shortest recap in history, but
it was a fast one.
so
No.
I hope you feel.
I'll put my results in the boardroom in a minute. All right. That's it. Dwayne's got to take the charts back. And there you go.
Last time we're going to see you for a week.
No, I'll still be here. Probably not going to do the partners meeting tonight, but I will still be.
All right, buddy. Well, I do hope you
Tomorrow. Okay. Thanks.
Here, let me crank up the YouTube stream.
Okay.
Now that we're streaming everywhere we should be streaming, my microphone is open, I can close the window. I have already taken the screens, so all right, my friend, I do hope you feel better.
Thank you. I hope so too.
So guys, what do we do here at CFRN? What's our mission statement? What are we all about? Well, we're about training. Now, a lot of people are looking for trade calling rooms, and most of you have probably been in a few, and you know how that goes. Won't call any names, but you know how it goes. It's kind of why you ended up here. And then you have those folks who are looking for magic money. In other words, the automated trading. I was clicking on something yesterday, which led me to click on something else, which led me down a rabbit hole to some review that a guy had written about somebody's automation system, which had a money-back guarantee, and the whole point is that the guy selling the automated system did not want to give the guy his refund. In fact, he even threatened the guy that if you try to reverse it with Visa or something, I've got attorneys on standby to take you down. It really got ugly. And it was all over, you know, some magic software that cost $1,500. But it had this really impressive historical track record. All which happened prior to this advertisement being placed on the internet. So, yeah, really no way of verifying anything like that. Our main goal here, while yes, Michael does trade live in the live trading room, puts on and takes off trades, talks you through each and every one of the trade setups. The goal of that is not for you to just piggyback his trades. I mean, it's fine when you're starting to trade right along with him, what he says, because that gets you in the rhythm so that you start to see it yourself. See, the goal here is to train you how to trade Emini Futures. Not to make you rich by giving you trades, which, by the way, we do also provide you with two different alert services, the Concierge and the Logic 247. The Logic 247 starts Sunday night at 6 p.m. Eastern and runs all the way up until Friday afternoon at 5 p.m. Eastern. It's around the clock as opportunity presents itself. We have traders around the globe, so we service all of our traders every day around the clock. Now, if I were to ask you, what's the #1 search engine on the internet? I'm sure you would all give me the exact same answer. Google. Everybody knows that. In fact, we don't even say search for something anymore. We say, when somebody asks a question, we say, I don't know, Google it. I mean, it's become a part of our vocabulary. But do you know what the second largest oh, great. All right, buddy. We'll keep in our prayers. So back to where I was. Okay. All right, so it's official. Michael won't get in the partners meeting tonight. So, come with your questions, have them ready. We'll get them answered, as we always do. So back to my question to you, what's the second largest search engine on the internet? Everybody knows #1 is Google. #2 is YouTube. So I decided to check on something yesterday. So I was thinking about our mission statement. So I went to the second largest search engine on the internet, and I made sure that I was not logged in. See, it's encouraging me to sign in, because both Google and YouTube, and you should be aware of this, they tailor your search results based upon your previous search history. So if you ever want to get a clean search, I mean, you've searched and searched for something and you keep getting the same answers, but it's not what you're looking for, log out of your Gmail account, log out of Google, or go to a different web browser that you never use. Go to Google, do your search there, and then you'll get what are called pure search results. So I went to Opera, I made sure I was signed out, and I typed in Emini Trading. Now there's more content uploaded to Google every 24 hours than you could watch in your entire lifetime, from the cradle to the grave. I'll say that again. Every single day there's more content uploaded to YouTube in 24 hours than you, if you live to be the average age, could watch if you spent every moment of your life from birth to the end doing nothing but watching YouTube. That's just how ginormous it was. So I typed in Emini training because, again, that's our goal. And I was even a little surprised. We got the #1 spot. We didn't get #2, but we did get #3 and #4, #5. Didn't get #6. Got #7. Not 8, not 9, not 10. Here we are again at 11. Missed 12 and 13 and 14 and 15. And here we are again, 16. And it just kind of keeps going in that same direction. So I'm not trying to brag or boast about how we show up in search results in YouTube. I wasn't not boasting about the fact that we had the #1 spot or any of that. I just wanted you to fully understand, especially if you're new, what our goal is here. Our goal is to teach you how to trade Emini Futures without us. Now, when you become a lifetime partner, of course, you have access to everything we do, every trade that we call, every alert that we post, indicators. You have access to all of that for life. And you're going to want that, because even after you've learned the methodology and learned the strategy, when you're sitting down to trade and you see an alert pop up in Logic 247 that perfectly mirrors exactly what you were just getting ready to do, that's real confidence. That will help you tremendously. But again, your goal from the beginning should be to just absorb everything you can. We've worked very hard to make it very simple. We took away a gazillion indicators we used to use and boiled it down to just the few that matter, to just the few that are really important. Okay? Our 2420 blueprint is designed after your period in the simulator. We want you to put together 10 consecutive days in sim before you go live and risk real money. That's just good sense. You should do that with any method or any new shiny indicator that you pull off the internet. I mean, if it can't stand up to 10 consecutive days in sim, it's not going to fly just because you start throwing real money at it. So the blueprint guides you through that period where you learn the methodology, put together your 10 consecutive days in a row, and then you go live. And when you go live with one contract. You don't need more than one contract. Your goal, once you go live, is to increase your account balance by $2,000. Why $2,000? So that you have money, profit in your account above and beyond what you opened your account with. You now have $2,000 of profit to add a second contract. Now you're going to trade with 2 contracts until the blueprint tells you it's time to add the 3rd contract. The 3rd contract will also be added with profit earned in the market. And number 4 and number 5. This is how you can build a successful trading business. It doesn't take a million indicators. It doesn't take complicated algorithms. You know, people go, where's your MACD? Where's your stochastics? Where's your advanced decline line? Where's your trend? Where's your tricks? How am I supposed to trade without all these things? And my answer is, how in the world can you trade with all those things? Because there's always so much conflict. With us, we have just a few indicators which mirror the underlying rhythm of the market. That's the purpose of our indicators. When you put our indicators on any chart, on any time frame, their job is to do some fast mathematical calculations and then graphically display to you the current underlying rhythm of the market. Our whole and entire methodology is based on that. It's based on the rhythm of the market. You know how you maybe have stumbled across at some point some trade set up that just, it worked like clockwork for a few days or a few weeks, and then it just became worthless. Well, everything works some of the time. Nothing works all of the time, except the market. Market works every day. Now, the market doesn't always do what we hope it would do on any given day. But outside of some tragedy or federal holiday, the market works every day. So our methodology, our strategy, our indicators are designed to mirror movement of the market. Not so that you can become a fortune teller and know with certainty what will happen next, because no one on planet Earth, not man nor the machines they've created, can predict the future with certainty. Now, you can flip a coin and be right half the time. So if a person cannot know what's going to happen next, how could you possibly make money in this trading business? It's simply this. By being able to look at a chart and understand what the next high probability move is. Now, the order flow or the movement of the market is influenced by every trader at every computer around the world. And we're talking hedge funds, we're talking banks, we're talking institutional traders, hedge funds, retail traders working out of their home office. At any moment in time, any one of those traders can make a decision to put on or take off one trade or 1,000 trades or contracts. And that can have an impact on the market. You've heard the thing about, a hummingbird? Can the flutter of a hummingbird's wings cause a storm to rise up on the other side of the world? That's a whole deep philosophical, and it's deeper than, it's a deep subject. And I think scientists have agreed that while it might not cause it, it can certainly have an effect on it. It could be the thing that caused this other thing to happen that causes another thing to happen, and it becomes a chain reaction. So what I'm saying is, even when you know what the next high probability move is, sometimes order flow shifts because some people somewhere change their mind, change their position. They were short and they decided to go long, or the market was moving down because the ask side of the DOM was packed, and then suddenly it seems as if they just all changed their mind, which gives confidence to the buy side of the DOM, and so the order flow moves. This is why we don't have any 100% track record. Never will. It's not possible. But we do the very best job that we can, and we do it in a very open, straightforward, and transparent fashion. Speaking of, Valerie just sent me over a copy of the Logic 247 recap. So let me put that in the right channel so that I can share it with you. Now, this has been a difficult week. as you will remember, not very long ago, every time we get near all-time historic highs, the market starts to behave oddly. There's not the same follow-through that you typically get. Any number of unusual things can happen. Because most what other folks would consider market crashes, guess where they almost always start from? If it's considered a market crash, go back historically and look at your charts. Chances are it began at or near a fresh, new, all-time historic high. The big crash we had back in '08, where the market did a 50% retracement. That began the day after the new all-time historic high was put in. Now, hey Valerie, I just got a message from Dr. Tom. He says our internet is down. I need the dial-in telephone number. I can do the show by phone. So he's going to call in and chat with us a little bit. Would you be able to, do you have the ability to send that to him? Or do I need to do it?
No, yes, I can do that for him.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
All right. So we're currently at week 119 of Logic 247. Now, this is the alerts that are sent out live in real time around the clock from Sunday night to Friday afternoon as opportunity presents itself. That's the only criteria. If there's opportunity in the markets we monitor, boom, you get an alert. This week, so far, as of 11 a.m., we've issued a total of 43 alerts. 11 of them never triggered. Still waiting on the results of 2. So we've had 30 actionable trade alerts. 5 of those were stopped out based on not risking more than $300 per contract per trade. So 17% of actionable alerts have been stopped out so far this week. Now our average number is 20%. You can see here, yesterday we were at 19% with 36 total alerts, and then now we're up to 43 total. Okay, and that's the breakdown. So even though percentage-wise we've done real well, we have managed to still maintain our percentage, which is typically 20%. Now those alerts, when they're coming at you, they look like this. Okay? And I'll start at the bottom and work our way up. This is from last night. This was a short on the Dow. Made $95 per contract available. That's what I call a lack of follow-through. There would have been substantially more if there had been the typical follow-through, but the market can't seem to make up its mind. Is it going to put in a new high, or has the new high already been put in? And big traders with big positions, they're waiting on the sidelines to see just what is going to happen. Here was a hedge on gold that was good for $110 per contract traded. This was a short on the Russell, $870 per contract traded. It was a short on the Dow, $865 per contract traded. Hedge on the NQ was good for $125 per contract traded. This was a long on silver. Good for $75 per contract traded. This was a long on the NQ, good for $390 per contract traded. There's a stop out on gold. Now, the methodology that we use for placing the stop is based on market structure. The maximum we want to risk on any one trade, any one alert, is $300 per contract per trade, less when possible. Here's an example of where the market gave you an opportunity to risk less than $300. This was a $150 risk, but it was stopped out. Here's a hedge on crude. Be short. The reason it's a hedge is because we had a long previously that hadn't triggered. And so, okay, if that's going to become a no trigger, then we got to trade what's in front of us. And so when the market started to look like it was heading south, we got in there with the alert. $630 per contract traded. Still waiting on results here for the ES. And on this ES, which was a short, it was good for $587.50 per contract traded. That's what the market made available. And this was crude, long. We don't have a trigger on that yet. Here's a $300 full stop out on the Russell. Here's a short on the Dow. That was good for $305 per contract traded. And this was the NQ, $140. NQ, $1,180 per contract traded. It's a $225 loss on a stop out. ES, $87.50 per contract traded. That's what was available. This was a short on silver, $1,300. No trigger, no trigger, no trigger. Stop out, $300. No trigger. And then we have the NQ, $360 per contract traded. Still got a no trigger here. A short on the Dow, good for $85. Here's a short hedge on the ES, which was good for $1,000, $1,050 per contract traded. No trigger. And now this brings us up to Sunday night. It's $110 per contract available on gold. $87.50 per contract available on the ES. Now remember, we only track in the recap the first trigger. But we know that important prices, important areas are almost always tested. So if you go back and look at these individually, you'll see in many cases that first trigger, which made $760 per contract traded on the NQ, there's a high probability that it came back to that entry, triggered again, and oftentimes the second and third trigger off of an alert number will provide lower risk and the potential for higher profit. $60 on the Dow, no trigger on silver, $95 on the Russell per contract. There's another loss, $250. NQ short, that was good for $3,415 per contract traded. That was on Sunday night. No trigger, no trigger. Then we had two carryovers from last week. Dow worth $85 and NQ worth $2,355 per contract traded. So that was week 119, which we're in right now, in reverse. Last week, which was week 118, 68 total alerts, 13 never triggered, 2 carried over. So we had 53 actionable, 6 were stopped out. So 11% of actionable alerts last week were stopped out. That's not a typical number. We average 20% being stopped out on any given week. Okay? All right. So that's what the Logic 247 is about. You never know when your phone's going to make that telegram sound at 2 a.m. or 2 p.m. And you should never feel obligated to, climb out of bed at 2 a.m. and go place a trade unless that's what you want to do. So on your phone, on your tablet, on your PC, you can turn off notifications while you're sleeping or spending time with the family. But the moment that you are available and ready for the business of trading, you turn the notifications back on. Anything that triggered while you were away, you should immediately go check and see if it's in a position to re-trigger. Quite often, you'll find that there is workable inventory just waiting for you. And as you sit at your desk, you'll have new alerts coming through. But there's also the Concierge Trade Alerts, which I'm going to show you now. These don't flow one by one around the clock. These come out as a static report at the beginning of the Globex session, as soon as I can get them out after Globex opens. Globex opens at 6 p.m. Eastern. You got two numbers for the S&P, the Dow, the Russell, Crude, NQ, gold, silver, the most popular markets right now. What you should do is you should go to your chart, put a line on the long side, and draw a line on the short side. When price reaches 35.81, you want to be long and or only looking for longs above that number. Price drops to 35.50, you want to be short and or only looking for shorts at or below that number. And then once you've drawn the lines on your chart, you know where the important areas are on the markets that you trade. You can put this away and keep your eye on your charts, on the Logic 247, and the lines that you've drawn on each of your charts. Okay. This is a daily chart of the S&P 500 Emini Futures. Now, all alerts are based off 30-minute charts, 30-minute trend. Most of our traders, when they're triggering on a 30-minute based alert, they'll drop to a 5 or a 1-minute chart in order. Todd says Russell pays $50 per point, so should be 435. Okay, duly noted. In fact, Valerie already commented back to you, Todd, what number, so she'll go take a look at it, straighten it out. But thank you very much. Okie doke. We have a new all-time intraday historic high in the S&P. Big deal. Even bigger deal. Yesterday's closing high was 35.73.50. The previous closing high $35.67.50.
Hello, this is Tom Barrett.
35.76.75. So that is a new all-time historic closing high right there, which is to a, hey, Dr. Tom, to a chart strategist, that is really more important than that. This is important. This is where the market closed, and we're following it up with a red day. And we're sitting right back on top of that trend line that I had drawn. We got the BBC right below us. So a move down to the BBC, then the market has to make a decision. Is that going to be leg, retrace, leg shooting at a new high, or do we fail at the BBC and head down to the 24% Fibonacci retracements? That's the shallowest retracement we expect is to the BBC, and then below that is to the 24% fib. So, Dr. Tom, how are you? Good to have you with us.
Thank you very much. I tried to get on earlier, but my internet's down, so I had to dial another telephone.
I've had a couple people tell me that they've been having internet problems, different people from around the country over the last couple of days. I think Valerie, haven't you been having some internet issues?
Yes, I have. Suspiciously, I think it's Patriots. Can I say that live?
Yeah, well, I'm not sure. When you say Patriots, do you mean conservatives attacking the internet, or?
No, I mean the other way around. I tweeted to somebody, add me to the list. So maybe they took me up on it.
Oh, interesting. Have you checked with your internet service provider?
Yes, well, my husband was having no issues whatsoever. It was just me. My download and upload speeds were absolutely fine, just where they should be. So it was just a glitch, but it seems to be just fine today.
A lot of glitches lately.
So it would seem.
Computers and software and all that good stuff. Well, Dr. Tom,
it's a conspiracy.
Are you having a storm in your area? Is that why your internet's out? Or?
No, we can't figure it out. We called our ISP, and they said nobody else is out, so go figure. I think it's a conspiracy to, keep patriots from communicating. I think Valerie's right.
All conservatives, right, yeah. Yeah, you are the guy that writes
that
conservativetruth.org blog. So
that's right.
They're coming for you.
So,
Commander Kamala said
Commander Kamala.
that everybody should start making a list so that over the next 4 years they can go after everybody in one way or another who supported Trump.
Yeah, I think she should actually be called Comrade or Commissar.
Now,
Kamala.
I know everybody's going to think that I've been listening to InfoWars or something, but the Joe Biden that I saw on TV last night, he looks a lot like the man that was running for the election. He looked a lot like the man who has been in Congress for 45 years, but he didn't look like the same man. I don't know if anybody else has noticed that. Maybe it's just my wife and I. Maybe our eyesight's failing. Have you heard this, or, and I'm not even going to say the word body double. Oops, I just did. But
well, it could be a clone or an avatar. It could be a hologram, for that matter.
Yeah, the thing I noticed the most was the nose seemed a little more pointed. That could be the Pinocchio thing kicking in. I don't know.
Well, when he came down that ramp to give his acceptance speech, blah blah, I think that was the real old Biden, because that he tried to run down the ramp to show his energy, but it was more like an old man shuffle, So that was the real one, but they probably got the body double or whatever you want to call it in place now, because he just didn't have the energy to do the things that he's going to have to do for the next 6 or 8 weeks or so. So it was actually the president reject that I wanted to talk about today.
Okay.
If you ask 1,000 people, is Joe Biden the president-elect, what would they say?
I'm sorry. If you ask a percentage of the people, what question?
Is Joe Biden the president-elect of the United States? what would most people say?
Well, I guess if you asked most Democrats, they would say yes, and I guess probably the majority, or at least some Republicans, would say no. I mean, the nation is hugely divided, and, you know, if it turns out Biden really is the president, and as Wayne just typed in, the real answer is not yet. Because the not yet part comes in. I watched a really good video yesterday that Val shared about when is it official? Well, number one, it's official when the other person running gives their concession speech. And you remember Hillary told Biden, no matter what happens, don't concede. And so Trump is following that because it's part of the legal wrangling that comes. I don't know where you found that video, Valerie, or who that guy was that was talking, but he seemed like a pretty sharp guy. So I enjoyed listening to that.
Well, that's pretty much the kind of thing I wanted to share. I want to talk about the actual legal process where someone actually becomes.
So good. I'm glad that everyone will have a chance to hear this.
Yeah, and Valerie, if you don't mind, send me that video because I'm going to be doing an article on this. But first, are you able to hear me fine, Dwayne?
I hear you perfectly fine.
Okay. So, first of all, he's not the president-elect by any measure. Okay. But yet, we see the media, even what used to be halfway conservative Fox News, they're calling him president-elect. He's got this big banner up behind him. This is the office of the president-elect. There is no such thing. And every news media is calling him president-elect. So they said their justification is, well, the election's been called for Biden. Well, called by whom, right? I don't know if you saw this, but the New York Times put up a tweet that they said, well, it looks like it's going to be up to the media to determine who the next president is. And of course, they had such an uproar over that, they had to take the tweet down. But I got a copy of it, and it's on Conservative Truth right now. They actually think that they can make him the next president by convincing a large portion of the American population, Republican and Democrat, that he is the president-elect, so that even if the real president is vindicated in recounts and so on, and if it goes to courts, and so, it won't matter because then they'll have so many people believing that Biden was properly elected that we'll have nonstop riots for 4 years. And that's what they're counting on. But they've even got the Federal Elections Commission is now referring to him as the president-elect. The General Services Administration, once officially declared as the president-elect, they have to provide him with offices with access to national security information, clearances to his people, salaries for the transition team, travel money. There's a lot that goes into it, and he really needs all of that and wants it all. But the GSA can't do anything legally until he actually is president-elect. But here you have the FEC, which leans heavily to the left, making a public statement saying, why haven't you provided these services to our president-elect? And these are government officials. So I think their game plan is to get so many people convinced that he's it, that by the time the truth emerges, people are just going to say, well, my mind is made up, don't confuse me with facts. But here's the actual legal process. First of all, you have to count the hundreds of thousands of votes that still have been counted. And the Democrats illegally extended the date that, particularly in Pennsylvania, the date that people could send ballots in by, two things happened. The Supreme Court upheld that decision, but they can't change law. Only the legislature can do it. So the Supreme Court decision is found invalid. Supreme Court, because they can interpret laws, but they can't make laws, creating a new law. Secondly, the mayor and the city officials of Philadelphia, the nation comfort recently when they came out and said, well, we've investigated and there has been no fraud. The election was perfect. Everything should be. So that's easy. Comfort until you realize Philadelphia is the most corrupt in the United States. And this is measured by for election fraud and other types of corruption. Chicago is the only one that beats them. And just in the last year, a Philadelphia congressman has been found guilty of election fraud, and gets an election judge of certifying an election for there's no question that there's been a tremendous amount of voter fraud. So there's going to have to be recounts. In some cases, the president doesn't have to ask for a recount. If it's a close race, a lot of states do automatic recounts. They're manually recounting every vote in Georgia right now because the Secretary of State of Georgia, when he's asked by a reporter, was there any fraud in this? And this guy's a Democrat. Of course there was. There's fraud in every election. It's just a matter of how much fraud there is. So until that stuff is settled, you can't even go to the next step, which is that once the Secretary of State of each state is satisfied that all recounts have been done and all lawsuits have been settled and so on, then the Secretary of State has to certify the results of the election. Now, that could be delayed, by lawsuits, but at some point they will either certify or say certify it's fraud. It's kind of interesting, it's the fact that vote. Americans have been dead, sometimes been dead for 50 years, and yet they still vote. There's no question that it goes on, but why is it that people always vote Democrat? They never vote. I'm sure there's an answer. I'm sure it's just a coincidence, or the computer glitch. Yes.
That's the curious part about it, across the board, and whether it is the social media platforms. I mean, these guys were in front of Congress and could not identify quickly or at all one, progressive, secular type of account that had been shut down, that had been banned. It always seems to be a conservative voice. And it's the same with this voting.
Yeah.
Conservative or Christian.
Yep.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I used to have problems when I was a stockbroker with my commissions. Just about 1 out of 3 months, my commissions would be wrong. And they say, well, anybody can make mistakes. I said, yeah, but why is it for the last 2 years, every time there was a mistake, it was in your favor, and I got less commissions? If it was half the time in my favor, half the time in your favor, then I would say, okay, it was a mistake. It's like the computer glitches they've had. In one case, where 6,000 Trump votes were flipped over by the machine, supposedly, to Biden votes. How come the computer glitch never went the other way and flipped Biden votes over to Trump? So, there's no question there's massive voter fraud.
That's a rhetorical question, right?
Yes,
Okay.
it is a rhetorical question. It's a device. I had a great time with Tucker Carlson last night because he put hundreds of people on the screen. They were just scrolling down that had been proven to have voted even though they were dead. There was one guy who was 118 years old, the oldest voter ever, and he voted for Biden.
But yet
But the strange thing was until he was...
reports that all of that's false, that there's no proof of any dead person voting. Is there or isn't there?
Yeah. He had hundreds of them he put up, and there's thousands of them that have been documented. But there's one Democrat. Yeah, and one Democrat said there's never been a case of election fraud, which is ridiculous. 326 people. But they're starting to parse their words. They're starting to say there's never been a case of in-person election fraud, or it's very rare that it's in-person. Because, if you're going to go and visit Granny and cast her vote, and you're a 22-year-old pimple-faced kid, that's not going to fly. So they're very careful to say that it's not in-person, but it's the mail-in. And Trump was right. He said that this is a prescription for fraud. Maybe Tucker showed actual cases. He had pictures of people, their biographies, and so on. But this one guy really interested me because until he was 84 years old, he always voted straight Republican. Without fail, every election. He would not vote for a Democrat under any circumstances. But from the time he was 84 until today, when he's 118 years old, he's voted a straight Democrat ticket. Again, what happened? An epiphany? No, he died when he was 84 years old. So unless he's rising from the dead to vote every 4 years, I'm going to have to assume it's voter fraud, right? So a lot of people are upset about it. I mean, I'm not a pastor of a church anymore, but I pastor, ordained ministers that are in my fellowship, and also at the seminary, I'm teaching pastors and future pastors. And then I just got hundreds of people that have been calling me saying, Tom, I'm depressed or fearful, I'm rejected, dejected, I'm confused. How could God allow voter fraud to defeat a sitting president? Well, first of all, Trump has been defeated. And it doesn't look good, but it didn't look good for his election either. 85% of the pollsters said he was not going to be elected, and he was. But what if he did? Does that mean that God allowed systemic voter fraud that is let Biden claim to be the president-elect? Yeah, it does. Because he's sovereign. He's in control. Why he would do it, I don't know. But the Bible says his ways are not our ways, and his thoughts are not our thoughts. Somebody asked me, would God actually allow the party of abortion, homosexual marriage, and suppression of religious freedom to win the White House? Doesn't God still govern the affairs of man? Sure he does. But he may not always govern in the way that we prefer. The difference is he's God and we're not. Sometimes he allows things to happen for reasons we don't understand. And I have a whole long list of questions I'm going to ask him in that regard when I get to heaven. Why did he allow this? Why did he allow that? But would God allow the party of abortion to take the White House? Of course. He did it with Obama. Obama was the most bloodthirsty. Yeah.
The least
But
likely
the Obama administration,
and with Hitler, I mean, the least likely of people to do what was done. I mean, he was like a stumble bum. He was in jail. His manifesto, he wrote that when he was in jail. He was like a petty thief, a petty criminal or something. Next thing you know, he's the Fuhrer.
yeah, it's true. So, there has been verified voter fraud in every election, in my lifetime anyway. Really aware of was Nixon. Nixon won the election, but JFK won the vote. That went up to put him on the top. Nixon fought it, but he decided to wait for another day. Keep in mind, guys, that we don't need to be afraid about this. People are saying, well, there's a well-funded socialist using time techniques of voter fraud, so our country's going to fall apart and so on. I don't think that's the case. I mean, I think it's the case that socialist is fraud. The simple fact is that no one can win the presidency for mission. Romans 13:1 says, "There's no power but of God. Powers that gained of God." That doesn't mean that fraud was, and it doesn't mean that Trump didn't win. We still don't know. But what I am saying is we shouldn't be in fear, because fear means that you don't trust in God. Jesus said in Romans 14:1, "Let not your heart be troubled. If you believe in God, believe also in me." So you can either trust in God and be blessed, or you can walk in fear and be distressed. So I'd sort of diverged a little bit from my usual type of thing I talk about, but I just wanted to speak to you from my pastor's heart for a minute and let you know that you don't have to be grieving for the nation, that no matter who sits in the big chair in the White House, God is still on his throne, and he's still in charge. So even if Biden is certified, then, the world doesn't end. It still keeps turning because God's in charge. But back to what has to happen before a real person can be certified. After the states certify their results, and we may have some states, like I said, that will refuse to certify because they know that there's been fraud. And until they certify, they can't send their electors to the Electoral College. But that's where it's all going to happen, unless Trump does concede. If his lawyers feel like there's no path that he can take that would result in winning, in other words, no question of voter fraud. But first they were saying, well, there's been none at all. Show us some. So they showed it to him. And they said, okay, well, there's been voter fraud, but has there been enough to turn the election? And that's really the big question. If 15,000 votes separating them and they find 3,000 fraudulent votes, doesn't mean there weren't more, but, if they can only prove 3,000 of them, then that's not going to swing that election or that state. So once they certify, then it goes to the Electoral College. Now, most Americans believe that they voted for either President Trump or Biden in the election. Actually, nobody did, because in America, we don't vote for president. We vote for electors who will then go and vote
that's
for us.
I think a lot of people don't understand. I think we were probably taught it in elementary school and social sciences or in some class, social stuff, something. But we don't think of it that way. But you're absolutely correct.
But it says on the Biden,
and it is correct me if I'm
on the
wrong.
ballot.
correct me if I'm wrong, that elector, even though the vote count says that they should vote one way, as the elector, they can actually go and cast their vote the other way if they want to. Am I
Yes,
wrong
and
on
that's the main point that I want to get across today. They're called faithless electors. But to understand how that could even happen, you have to understand most states are what's called winner-take-all states. So whatever the majority is, if there's one more vote for Trump than there was for Biden, then all the electors of that state have to vote for Trump, or actually those electors are sent to vote for Trump. They don't have to, as Dwayne correctly just stated. There are some states, like Nebraska and Maine, where if 2/3 of the votes go for one candidate and 1/3 goes to the other, and 2/3 of the electors vote for that candidate, and the 1/3 vote for the other. So those are not winner-take-all states. And the number of electors that each state has is equal to the number of representatives they have in the Senate and Congress. So a little tiny state like Vermont has just as many senators as huge states like California and Texas. Every state gets 2. This is part of the genius of the Founding Fathers to balance the power amongst the large and small states. The more powerful House of Congress is the Senate. So every state gets equal representation. They all get 2. But then states with huge populations get a lot more. Like we've got states here, electoral votes in Florida because we have 18 congressmen, whereas Vermont only has 1 congressman, and they really only have enough people, according to the formula, to have like a quarter of a congressman. They couldn't find any politicians willing to be, cutting fourths. So they end up getting a full vote, right? So the number of congressmen and senators determines the number of electors. But interestingly, the Founding Fathers said no one that holds public office can be an elector, okay, because there's too many conflicts of interest. The idea is you send people as electors who are wise people, who are patriots, who love the country more than they love their party. And then when they get to the electoral college, 95% of the time they vote the way that they were directed to vote by the people in that state. But the Founding Fathers, again, part of their genius was to have a safety valve that would protect the nation. Let me just give you a scenario. Okay, the mainstream media totally ignore proof, not the rumors. It's fine, if media doesn't report rumors. I think it's better that they don't. But just before the election, this Tony Bobolinsky came forward and proved that Biden, that's the way I think of him, he's like an extension of Obama, that Biden lied through his teeth about his son Hunter's illegal and treasonous business dealings. Biden family, including Hunter, his son, Jim, his brother, and Joe Biden himself, had gotten at least $1.5 billion from China, our worst enemy. So naturally, Biden has been saying, well, China's not our enemy. China's just a competitor, and Russia's the real danger. No, China is an existential threat to the United States. Russia has been so defanged that they really couldn't even start a military challenge to the United States. But China, different story. They could really harm us. They've got an army, I think, is bigger than all the people in the United States. I don't know, I'm probably exaggerating there, but they have a huge, huge army, and Navy and Air Force and so on. So they own Biden, so they want him to be elected because they don't want it to come out that they bribed the sitting vice president, because that's exactly what happened. So the media hid all this. I'm not talking about the rumors, I'm talking about the facts. Proof that even though Biden said he didn't know anything about his son's business dealings, he never even discussed them with him, which is crazy. I think you would never discuss your son's business dealings when he's making millions of dollars a month. You know, where's that money coming from? You know, but there's proof now that he was in meetings with these people, all right? And there's proof that although he says correctly, he never received a single dollar from a foreign government. You notice he never said that he didn't receive any money that his son received or his brother received. Because there's proof of that now. He just told so many lies that when the laptop came out, it wasn't about the lewd and lascivious sex pictures of Hunter. That's the problem. The problem is there's proof on there that, for instance, Joe Biden was getting 10% of one deal and this kind of thing.
Right.
So have you heard any of them? Joe Biden, his son, Hunter, whose laptop it was, or his brother, have you heard any of them deny that the stuff on the laptop is true? They haven't denied it once, because then they'd be adding perjury to their treason. So instead, Biden says, well, I'm not going to talk about a smear campaign. And he just refuses to ask the questions. If all you'd have to do is say, no, none of that stuff is true, the Republicans faked it or something. But he's never denied it. So, again, if all this had come out before, if the news media hadn't hidden it, then Biden probably wouldn't have gotten anywhere near the number of votes he'd gotten, and Trump would have won by a landslide. But now it has come out. So here's the scenario. Before the Electoral College meets, Biden is indicted for treason or for influence peddling or for any one of a dozen federal crimes he's committed. We get to the Electoral College. Remember, faithless electors. I think this should be called faithful electors, because they're faithful to the Constitution and they're faithful to the country, even if they're Democrats. And it looks like we're going to have a spectacle of a sitting president under indictment, fighting off injunctions and possibly going to prison. Even the Democrats don't want that. So I think that the Democrat electors would probably flip and vote for Trump. So Trump could win at the Electoral College.
Play out, and maybe Valerie, because she watched the video, maybe she can remember. I can't remember the specifics. I was paying attention to it halfway, but the legal wrangling can reach a point where there's a vote held, and each state, no matter how small, no matter how large, has one vote. It can come down to that, and the gentleman that made the video, who's just so credible, again, I don't know who he is, but Valerie, I'll send you that video, but I'm sure you'll find it interesting. And he seemed very well versed in the law, and he had studied this well before he got on the camera. So, in fact, he was driving as he was talking. That's how confident he was with the material. He was in his car and had the camera pointing at him, while he was talking. Valerie, do you remember what that final step was, where it ended up being a final vote? Each state gets one vote, no matter how many representatives or how demographics, none of that. Do you recall?
Well, it had to do with the 12th Amendment, and it was something that today I was going to go back and look at, because it is something I haven't heard anywhere else. And this gentleman's a pastor, I think, in
I figure he had to be a pastor or an attorney, one of the two. I didn't know which.
Yeah. He may have, been a reformed attorney.
Yeah,
But
I had that kind of look about him. Well-groomed, nice-looking guy, very professional, but dressed casually. So the 12th Amendment, did you know off the top of your head, Dr. Tom, what the 12th Amendment is?
I don't. I feel ashamed. I should know.
Well, I suspect my friend Google knows. Let me ask her. 12th Amendment. Simplified. Oh, I like it.
Yeah, if you go to conservative.org, I've got the entire Constitution there.
The 12th Amendment stipulates that each elector must cast distinct votes for president and vice president instead of 2 votes for president. The 12th Amendment requires a person to receive a majority of the electoral votes for vice president, and that person to be elected vice president by the Electoral College. I don't know if that's telling me what I wanted to know. To prevent deadlocks from keeping the nation leaderless, the 12th Amendment provided that if the House did not choose a president before March 4th, which was then the first day of a presidential term, the individual elected vice president would act as president, as in the case of death. I'm trying to figure out where... The 12th Amendment introduced a quorum requirement of 2/3 of the whole number of senators for the conduct of balloting. Furthermore, the 12th Amendment requires the Senate to choose a vice president by way of affirmative votes. Now, I'm not finding the part that he was referring to, but it'll give us both something to look up.
Something to dig into.
I don't know that.
Yeah.
Did he say has it? I don't think it's ever come down to that. But according to the Constitution, that's the way it would come down, right, Valerie?
That was my understanding, yes.
In fact, there's only been 2, I believe he said.
2 times in history, yes.
2 times in history that we've been in the quandary that we're in right now. And I'm assuming one of those times was
Bush Gore.
The Bush Gore hanging Chad. I can't remember.
I don't think so.
No,
I'm going to have to review it. It was in the 1800s.
Are we talking contested election? Is that what you're talking about? An election's been contested?
That could be. I'm on the spot.
Okay.
I didn't.
She didn't know I was
really
going to grill her on this.
No, I didn't. So let me listen to this again.
We'll know what we're talking about next Thursday when you come back.
Right. I was in the middle of the Bush Gore situation because it was finally decided here in Florida. I was actually a Republican vote observer. Which if they'd allowed in this election, we wouldn't be having this problem right now. But particularly in Philadelphia, they refused to allow Republicans for the vote. And then after much threats of lawsuits and so on, they said they could, but they had to stand 120 feet away. They put up these steel barriers. And they complained about that naturally. And so then they moved the barriers 30 feet away. Well, you can't see what people are doing 30 feet away. But they said, well, the Democrats have to stand there. Those Democrat observers have to stand there. Well, they didn't care because they already knew the vote had been rigged. I
said all along the reason Biden stayed in the basement was because he didn't need to go out and campaign and do rallies because he already knew what the outcome of the election was going to be. That he was going to be the next sitting president. The fix was in. So that's why he wasn't anxious to go out there and embarrass himself.
Finally, a judge said to allow the observers to be within 6 feet. And so they did. But even at 6 feet, you can't see a whole, from my experience being there, they had 2 counters at each table, and then one Republican and one Democrat behind them, and we were like within 2 feet, and we could actually see the ballots they were looking at. And if everyone agreed, if the two of them agreed, that is, that they were valid, they went in one stack. And if one of them felt like it wasn't valid, then the two observers would get involved. And if everyone finally agreed, then they would go to the good stack. And if it was still in dispute, it went to the disputed stack, and then the experts would go through them. But the way they did this, it was, but there's been so many things, like they have videotape of huge trucks arriving at the polling places in the middle of the night when there's no poll workers there. You know, they've gone home and stopped counting. And they bring in boxes and boxes and boxes of ballots. Here in Palm Beach, there were 2 cars illegally carrying ballots in their trunks. They're only supposed to go to a county truck and be taken directly from the precinct to where they're counting the votes. Well, these 2 cars had brought votes from heavily Republican districts. We actually have some of those in Florida. And so they were holding them back until they got word that there was enough Democrat votes to elect Al Gore, even if these were all Republican votes. And then only then did they come in and turn them in. They claimed that they were lost. I mean, how do you get lost in money, right? But if they did the other way, if they needed to get rid of a lot of Republican votes, those votes would have been burned or tossed into a canal or something. And this I know happened because I was there. I interviewed one of the judges for Conservative Truth who voted on, or who adjudicated some of the disputes. But, you know, President Bush won by 535 votes, and it all came down to Florida, where the 3 biggest counties in the state, the election commissions were all completely run by Democrats. And so there was massive voter fraud. Bush probably won by 10,000 votes or more. The Florida Panhandle is a Central Time, and everybody knows that. And the main part of the state is in Eastern Time. So the big news media called the state for Gore at 7 o'clock at night, you know, as soon as well, not 7, but, you know, shortly after, when the preponderance of votes were for Gore. And the conservative handle hadn't even closed their voting. So a lot of people just didn't go out and vote because they said, well, we've already lost. And they did that deliberately. We had Google and Facebook and Twitter colluding with Biden and his people to suppress the vote. I mean, the Democrats talk about voter suppression all the time, but they, you know, the media and big tech have been heavily involved in voter suppression. Pfizer, okay, they were supposed to announce this big announcement that happened on Monday that they had a vaccine, and they promised to do it by the middle of October. Instead, they held off until the first business day after Biden claimed the election. That helped Biden. If that announcement come out that Trump's they call it Operation Warp Speed to quickly develop vaccines. At first, Pfizer said, no, this had nothing to do with Trump. This wasn't part of Operation Warp Speed. And then they had to reverse themselves because it absolutely did. But, you know, the reason they did this is because Trump is insisting that Americans shouldn't pay more for pharmaceutical drugs developed in this country than people in other countries pay. I mean, stuff that we developed here, Lilly and Pfizer and Johnson & Johnson and so on, sells in Canada for a third to a half of what we have to pay for it. So the pharmaceutical companies definitely did not want Trump to be president. there might be in the other countries, but there wouldn't be here. But the thing is, here, yeah, like that hydrochloroquine that President Trump took, just because he liked it, everybody said it was terrible and didn't do anything. But it's been used for 60 years with no helped people from the China virus, and it costs 50 cents a dose. Okay, so the pharmaceutical company said no, it's too dangerous to use for this because they didn't want to be selling something that was cheap. You know, after a certain amount of time, yeah. And you're still alive, right? So, malaria. Yeah. You know, every drug has side effects. And one of the minor side effects, very rare, of hydrochloroquine is a heart arrhythmia. Well, an arrhythmia can just mean your heart's going a little too fast or a little too slow or skips a beat or goes well. In other words, not life-threatening. But they use that little tiny percentage of the people who've used hydrochloroquine and said, well, it's got dangerous side effects. You know, you could have heart problems. But it just wasn't true. The point is, once a drug, you know, it's sort of like a copyright. Okay, you can have a copyright for X number of years, or you patent an invention for X number of years, but eventually it becomes public domain. So that's why when you go to the drugstore, you have a choice between the name brand drug or the generic. And the generics are way cheaper. So they want to, hydrochloroquine was generic. So the drug company said, no, it doesn't do any good. But it's because they wanted to sell expensive medications. So they wanted Biden to win because the Democrats have never, ever pushed for lower drug prices. I think the only president that has, really seriously, has been Trump. Because they want the millions of dollars in donations. Yeah, they want those donations big time. So under Biden, drug prices will go up, and under second Trump administration, they'll go down. So it's just that simple. And there's so many other things that you know, the military is going to suffer if Biden gets in the office. Under Obama-Biden, they cut the military by 50%. And Trump just gets done building it back up again. And now they're going to try to reverse everything he's done. Energy independence. First time we've been energy independent in decades. And we're actually selling oil to other parts of the world. Under Biden, we're going to go right back to Muslims and Arabs determining the price of oil we get, and they can cut us off anytime they want to because they don't want us to drill our own oil. I mean, it's just one thing after another. It's just taxes. Why would people vote for a guy who says, if I get elected, I'm not going to lower your taxes. I'm going to raise them by $4 trillion. What person with a brain would vote for a guy like that? They must be brainwashed. All I can say. So anyway, I think we should pray that Trump gets justice. But even more important, we need to pray that we have peace in this country. You know, the Bible says that Jesus is the Prince of Peace, and we need peace. We don't need another civil war, which is what some of these liberals are trying to do. They're trying to actually foment a civil war so that they can have an excuse for even more lockdowns or even martial law. And so regardless of how things shake out, we need to pray that there's peace in the streets, no more riots, because America can survive a Biden presidency. I don't think we can survive another civil war. And that's my opinion, and I'm going to stick to it. I don't know. Send it to me. I'll research it. Yeah, and the media as well. Well, and the media as well. I mean, basically, if you go back and there's a thing called media integrity or something. The guy writes for Conservative Truth sometimes. They study media and they keep track of mentions of this and that on places like the Communist News Network, CNN, and ABC, and MSDNC, and so on. There are at least 10 stories or mentions negative about Trump for every one positive. And that's been since he's been in office. But in the last few months, it's been more like 20 to 1. And yet everything about Biden has been positive. They won't allow a single negative story about Biden on the major news networks. And as Valerie was saying, the media have been either censoring or shutting down the accounts totally of Christians and Republicans and conservatives. So basically, if there wasn't that kind of bias in the internet and the media, Trump would have won by 15, 20%. But all of that is actually voter suppression. And I want to just mention one other thing, and that is as far as voter integrity. Why is it that Republican states have, or even Florida here, we're not a Republican state by any means, but we have enough Republicans to where we have integrity at the polling place. When I walk in there, I have to have voter ID, not voter ID, but picture ID, government issued, and they run it through a little scanner. They see that I am who I am. I have to sign and match my signature against the signature they have on file. And if it doesn't match, I don't vote. So why is it that the Democrats, you can't get into their convention without photo ID? In every state they control, they don't allow people to be, have voter ID. And in Pennsylvania, they wouldn't even allow the signatures to be compared. At the last minute, they made these new rules. And you don't make new rules unless you for an election. But they said, no, we don't have time to compare signatures. So you've got people that have gone out into neighborhoods and either stolen ballots out of mailboxes or intimidated older people to give their ballots, or paid a bottle of wine, and dumped hundreds and hundreds of ballots off, all with the same handwriting, all with the same color pen. I mean, why is it that the Democrats do not want any kind of situation that would allow people to know if a vote is valid, and the Republicans want that kind of safety. Only one reason is because their whole plan is to steal elections. Because do you think Biden would have won just on his own? I mean, the voter enthusiasm for Biden was so bad that most people who said they're going to vote for Biden said they're not voting for him, they're voting against Trump. In other words, they didn't really care about Biden at all. They just hated Trump. And Trump voters, almost all of them, said that they're voting for Trump. They really don't care that much about Biden. So I was hoping for really bad weather, like rain or hailstorms or something on election day, because most of the Biden voters had so little enthusiasm for him that if there was a lot of rain, they'd go out, we'll stay home. But Trump voters go over broken glass in a hailstorm to vote for him. I mean, they love the guy. So there's, everything about it seems to have happened before the election. And so it actually didn't matter that much because the election started taking place. Well, I can't wait to dig into it. I don't think this is over, guys. I really don't. I think that at the very least, be fervent to Yeah, 71 million.
But we will not riot, loot, and go out and cause damage.
And yet there's a Democrat colonel who used to be this chief of staff to Colin Powell, so he's not an unknown or a loony bird. I saw him on Fox the other night. He made the statement that, well, if Trump voters don't accept the results of this election, the military have to be called in, and there's going to be a lot of blood running in the streets. What an inflammatory remark for a former U.S. military officer to make.
Without any proof.
Times.
No precedent for that comment whatsoever.
It's his opinion. So we keep on praying, and we keep on working. There's still Trump rallies going on all over the country, and they're grassroots and not organized by Trump. In my little town here, we had a 2.5 mile long Trump train, they called it. Everything from big trucks to cars to motorcycles to you name it. Swamp buggies filled with flags and people yelling and cheering for Trump. They even had one of those in Beverly Hills, like arguably one of the most liberal neighborhoods in the world. And there were people out there waving American flags and so on. Here's something interesting. As I drive around, before the election, there's Trump signs in some yards, there's Biden signs in other yards. Almost every yard that had a Trump sign also had an American flag, right? I didn't see one single American flag as a Democrat household. That tells you something big right there. They're ashamed of the flag. it has happened in Beverly Hills. After 911, the firefighters had put American flags on the back of the trucks. They're going to fires. I expect they're waving. They were forced by the city council to take them off because the American flag was offensive to some of the people in Beverly Hills. So we have a face-off between people who are pro-life and people who are pro-death, people who are patriots and people who are globalists that want us to be part of a one-world government, people that want to destroy our economy so we'll be weakened enough and people would welcome a one-world government, as opposed to someone like Trump who had the strongest economy that the nation has seen in at least 100 years. I mean, the choice is obvious. But yet half the people in the nation are close to half the people voted for Biden, if you don't count the illegal votes. And they want illegal aliens to be able to vote. And I don't know any patriot that wants that. So
I've been told I wasn't the sharpest knife in the drawer, so. We lose you, Tom? I think we lost Tom. All right. Tom's about done. Anyway, all right, on the chart, I was asked by Tim C. to put up a 5-minute chart of the S&P. Now, let's put that in context. Let me go back to the 30-minute ES. Tom, you there? Okay. Yesterday morning around 11 a.m., there was a Logic 247 alert to short the S&P 3550. Didn't happen till the 2330 candle last night. There was also a CTA, which I showed you the CTAs earlier. You didn't get a screenshot and you want one, here you go. 3550. Sometimes CTA numbers and logic numbers are identical. Sometimes they're a couple points apart. And sometimes a logic will be like a halfway point leading you to a CTA. Okay? So anyway, in this instance, it just so happened that 3550 was the number yesterday morning for a logic alert and never triggered until here. The Concierge Trade Alerts came out at 6:15 p.m. Eastern last night, and in the 2330, so between 11:30 and midnight is when it triggered. Okay. I hit the initial target, it hit the second target, it hit the third target. It was good for 11 S&P points at $50 a point, $550 per contract traded. Now we know important prices, important areas are almost always tested. So what do price do? Gets back above the trigger and gives us a 9-point drop. And then it gets back above the trigger. Then it even actually gets back above the weekly trading zone. And see, all of this they hit through here. That's very, very difficult trading. Okay? But we had a little drop here, 3 points, 5 points, a couple little 2-point triggers, not very meaningful. And then we caught this one, which dropped us to, that's a 30-point move in the S&P at $50 a point. It's $1,500 per contract traded. If you're a 10 contract trader, it's 15 grand. You still haven't hit T5, fifth target, or the final trade 2 target, which is the zone below. Remember, price is always trying to get to a zone, either the one above or the one below. The way you know the difference is when price is above the BBC, it's trying to get to the zone overhead. When it's below the BBC, it's trying to get to the zone below. So we just had this nice 30-point move over the last 2 hours. Okay, and after a nice leg, what do we expect? A retracement. Now, will it be a deep enough retracement to take it all the way to the BBC? Or will red and falling, where it's currently finding resistance at the step line, and red and falling, it's running into resistance, will that be sufficient to continue the leg down? Now this is on the 30-minute chart. So you have to wait until there's some clear indication of what's happening here, because while we're below the BBC, which means we anticipate lower prices, we currently have a green candle. So we don't sell a 30-minute green candle. Now let's go back to the 5-minute chart. Hopefully that'll put things in perspective. What we were anticipating, see, we had the bearish cross, price pulled away, price pulled back to physically touch, down close, and here was the move from 35.52 ultimately down to 35.22, 30-point move. So after a nice leg, and there was a shallow retracement here to red and falling, and then it completed the move. Then we had a retracement to the BBC, and what I was hoping for, okay, or let me just say, the next high probability move would be a repeat of this, is that the pullback would hold, we would continue the leg down. This was a window of opportunity, but what I was pointing out here is even if this pullback to the BBC holds and price starts to come down, it's going to run into potential support at blue and climbing. Now, potential support and potential resistance on the 5-minute are not as strong as the 30-minute. I mean, there's 6 5-minute candles inside of one 30-minute candle. This is why we always take our cue from the 30-minute. Okay? So if the 30-minute is short, it's screaming short till we get back above the BBC, but a green candle and red and falling. So we have 2 of the 3 things we need. The third thing is we need this green candle or the next green candle to turn red, because right now we got a retracement. And somebody said, did you put fibs on that? Sure. So we've retraced to red and falling and 38% fib. Leg, retrace. Will we get a continuation of the leg? The high probability says yes. Now that 30-minute candle just went red. how much time's left in this candle. This candle only has 6 minutes in it. So it's gone red. So now we can anticipate a move back towards the lows, and potentially further. So we go back to the 30-minute chart. And we go back to the 5-minute chart. So the 5-minute, as we enter, we want to get below the BBC. I'd really, at this point, how much room is there between the step line, 35, 32, 35, 31? So the way I would want to use my 5-minute chart right now is, now here's one option, and think about this. You could just go short right here. Simply go short here with your stop loss right there. Very small stop. Or the other option is to let price get below blue and climbing. So you get an entry maybe down at, I don't know, 35.27. Down to potential support at 35.22. So that's a 5-point window of opportunity, where the 5-minute and the 30-minute chart agree. Now, well, you might be thinking, I better check the 30-minute to make sure it's still a red candle. As long as this 5-minute is still a red candle, you can guarantee that 30-minute candle is red. Why? Because that 30-minute candle is, by the time it completes, it will be made up of 6 5-minute candles. So now it becomes a waiting game. Okay. Now, getting below blue and climbing, we'll call that 35.27. And there's 35.27 on the 30-minute chart. Okay. If price reaches 35.27, it's an extremely high probability that it will at least attempt to challenge these lows. Now this was both a CTA and a logic alert. We had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 triggers off one alert. I call it one alert because they were both just so happened to be the same number. But again, that should encourage you as well when you see that an alert put out yesterday around 11 o'clock a.m. Eastern that never triggered, now suddenly shows up as a concierge trade alert at 6 o'clock at night, 6:15. It should give you some pretty good confidence that that really is an important price, important area. And so the first drop, you dropped 11 points. Okay, $550 per contract traded. So right now we're at the 23% fib. We get below that, that's like the last bastion of support. We get below that, and then 35.27, and we very well may see 35.20. And again, there was still a fifth target on that concierge trade alert at 35.15, then a final trade 2 target, weekly zone below, which is simply price going from zone to the zone. Price does that all the time. It's what price does. It just doesn't always do it in a straight line, and this is definitely not a straight line. This part of it's a little straighter. Does everyone see that the weight is to the downside? Well, thank you very much, Tim. Okay. So do we need to check and see if the 5-minute is still red? Well, if there was some retracement here and there was some wick, you might. The fact that this is red and at the low, then you just simply know, yeah, that's still red. And so window of opportunity 35.27. To be conservative, 35.23. It's a conservative trade. It's at 4 points. $50 a point, $200 per contract traded. Now, we know what the next high probability move is. Our strategy and our indicators have clearly shown us the next high probability move. Is that a guarantee of what will happen? No. See, there are no guarantees. I know people have lots of websites that guarantee all kinds of stuff. But be careful. Be cautious. Okay? All we do is show you the truth about trading, help you to understand what the next high probability move is most likely to be. And then it either happens or it doesn't. However, as you saw from what Michael showed you as results of the room this morning, and what I showed you as a result of the logic alerts, and what I'm showing you with the concierge, the next high probability move does happen more often than it doesn't happen. And that's the definition of a definable edge. And in a business based on probabilities, in order to be consistently profitable, doesn't mean you're 100%, always get your profit trader. But to be a consistently profitable trader, you must understand it's a business based on probabilities. Then you must have a definable edge so that you can take advantage of the opportunity and of the probabilities. Okay? So we'll let this play out. Staring at it can make your eyes hurt, can give you an ulcer. But all the staring, clenching your teeth, clenching your fist, won't change what happens here. This is where you have to let it go. Now in church we're taught to let it go and give it to God. Here you got to just let it go and give it to the market. Because the market's going to do what the market's going to do. And you and I cannot change that. We simply show up looking for obvious spots in the market where there's a higher probability of the market doing one thing as opposed to doing the other thing. And when we find those little windows of opportunity, we do our best to take advantage of them. So we're into the window. And I'll tell you, it's much less nerve-wracking to watch the 30-minute than to watch the 5-minute. The 5-minute could give you a green candle here. It's still not change the outcome that we're actually going to reach the bottom of the window of opportunity. So from 35.27, looks like we've done about 2 points already. So there's a 2-point trade already off 35.27. And based on our 30-minute window picture, Okay, here we come. Now, you got to understand, when price reached this area, this low at 35.20, there were enough buyers around the world interested in that looked like a bargain price to them. So they were able to actually run it up for 30 minutes. Pretty strong. Red and falling did serve as the resistance. Could have gone up to the BBC, but red and falling was enough, and that should give you more the fact that the shallow retracement or the red and falling, that was all it took. It didn't have to do the full retracement to start over again. Okay. So at this point, you have to be cautious. In fact, I usually start looking at the bottom of the bodies of the candle more so than I do the wicks. I mean, price really did trade down to the bottom of the wick, but then it ran right back up. Okay, and then we opened, we went back down to that same number, and buyers overcame it, took us up. So, are buyers going to make a stand here? We don't know. What we do know is, because we're below the BBC and we have red and falling, the high probability move, big picture, is that price will ultimately make its way down to this weekly trading zone. Okay? All right, let me run through these others real quick because we're way over time. On the Dow, the Concierge Trade Alert was to be short 29,110. We had a 70-point move, we had a 70-point move, we had a 104-point move, and we had a 213-point move. Dow pays $5 a point. So that's $350, $350, $500, $1,000. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4 triggers off the same alert. Now the NQ, bucking the trend, long 11,928, and if you got out at the exact swing high, it was worth $740 per contract traded. The short side has not triggered yet. Okay. Russell, it was so flat. Let me see, what was the number on the Russell? Short 1716. No, I guess it wasn't that flat. 17, 16. Come on. Show your number. I'm at the point of having to reboot almost daily. So that basically the low of this candle was about 1716. So this would have triggered, and the low would have been 1712. So that's 4 points at $50 a point. It's $200 per contract traded. The swing low here. Come on. 1691. So 1716. So 16 and 9. It's a 25-point move at $50 a point. That's what you're looking at right there. 25-point move, $50 a point. Okay. Now, you see how, just like the S&P pulled up to red and falling on the 30-minute and started to drop, price going from zone to zone. That's what I taught when I say that the futures typically move as a pack, but I like to see them all four flowing in the same direction. Now, the NQ, as we saw, is starting to get with the party. S&P's trading to the downside, Dow trading to the downside, Russell trading to the downside. Now that the NQ has joined the party, that, in my mind, adds strength to the potential downside outcome. Okay? You've got potential support. Now, this wick, you would just go, okay, well, that's where support is. But you see, price traded all the way down, then it rallied back up. And then buyers, it was handed off to the buyers here. Buyers had it here when the new candle opened, and they kept going. So in this case, the wick is really the important part. Okay? But red and falling. So that's the Russell. Let's look at crude. Difficult trading. What was crude? Long above 42.10. Did we ever make 42.10? Yeah, we did. And the swing high. Four ticks. Okay. Most likely just a stop out. Okay. The short side for crude, which looks like is coming into play, is 41.10. So in the afternoon session, oh, it just hit it. Just triggered 41.10. We're at 41.09 right now. Okay. Okay, next is gold. Concierge Trade Alert on gold was to be long 1872. This first candle ran up $680 per contract. It actually put in an exit signal over here at 1876. So if you stayed in it to the exit signal, it was a $400 per contract trade. And silver was so flat, I don't think I ever marked it up. But we'll glance at it. Silver. Long above 24.45. The swing high is 24.47. So 2 pennies, $100. Short side 24.16. And the swing low was 24.09. So that's 7 pennies. 2 pennies is $100. So is that $350 per contract? Margins are very high on silver, so keep that in mind. Talk with your broker. So that covers it. Okay, all right. Buyers have come in early, trying to drive this thing up. What's the reflection here on our 5 minute? We never quite made it to the bottom of that window of opportunity. We did more than 2 points from 35.27. It's like we got down to about 25.24. You know, so there was 3 points in there. Nothing wrong with that. But you see this climb is getting ready to run into what? Red and falling. If that serves as good resistance, Got a leg and a retracement, a leg and a retracement, a leg. Now it's attempting to retrace. Either of these can potentially be good resistance. Remember, the larger the time frame that you get the signal on, the more powerful it is, the more meaningful it is. Again, you can use the 5-minute to establish your trigger if you want, to establish a stop loss, but you'll probably find yourself more comfortable watching the 30-minute chart. Your stop's in place, your target's in place. One of the two is going to get hit. I just find it less nerve-wracking looking at the bigger picture. Whatever works best for you is exactly what you should do. So a leg of retracements, leg, shallow retracement, leg, retracement, deeper retracement all the way to the BBC, leg. This may turn out to be just a shallow retracement. As it touches red and falling, that may send it back in our direction. Okay? Now, to all the world, it looked like price was going to go down to challenge these lows. When I say order flow controls everything, you should, you had 4 points in this trade as we discussed it. But if you were waiting for it to touch the bottom of the window, now you're going, oh man. Now I got to draw down. I have 4 points. Now I'm going to draw down. And you've got to decide, are you okay with that? Or, as the market makes money available, you pay yourself. As the market makes money available, just pay yourself. If you choose that route, you've also got to learn how to not look back later and, be concerned about what you left on the table. We want it all, but you got to choose. You can have one or the other. You just really can't have both. So, buyers certainly aren't on fire. It's not like we're building some big, bold green candle here. And they seem to be losing ground. The big picture that you got to remember is from this high to this high to this high. We got above it, came back, did a Trader Vic, but we're still sitting on top of that trend line. If we can get below that trend line, we're going to run into blue inclining and the BBC. So for a big picture short position, we need to see price get below that BBC, say 34.10, and then down to the 24% fib, 33.22. It's about 90 points. Well, let's go 33.90 to 33.20. There's a potential 70-point move on the downside, but before we can take that trade, we got to get price below the trend line, below blue inclining, below the BBC. Okay? All right. Let's go to our good word for the day. Yesterday we started talking about how to overcome discouragement. We'll continue with part 2. Nehemiah 4:14. I called together the nobles and the rest of the people and said to them, don't be afraid of the enemy. Remember the Lord, who is great and glorious. Don't just think about the problem. Think about the Lord. Nehemiah said, as I looked over the situation, I called together the nobles and the rest of the people and said to them, don't be afraid of the enemy. Remember the Lord, who is great and glorious. Now, this applies to you in your situation, whatever it is. 3 things. Number 1, remember God's goodness to you in the past. When you start thinking about all the good things He's already done in your life, your spirit will be lifted and your anxiety eased. Now, that's if you gave Him credit for the good things back then when they happened. If you took credit for them, this is why we always give Him the glory, so that we can have these mountaintop experiences that we can look back on and we can believe with all of our heart that that was God moving in our life. Number 2, remember God's closeness in the present. What is He doing in your life right now? The truth is, He's with you whether or not you feel His nearness. In Hebrews 13:5, He said, never will I leave you, never will I forsake you. So when you're on the mountaintop, He's there. When you're in the valley, He's there. Number 3, remember God's power for the future. He will give you strength for your needs. When you get discouraged, get your mind off your circumstances and focus on God. Because circumstances can depress and discourage you. Chances are, if you're feeling disheartened, it's because you're thinking gloomy thoughts. If you want to feel uplifted, make a concerted effort to think uplifting thoughts. As a man thinketh, so he is. And choose some encouraging Bible verses to memorize. Quote them to yourself. Something like Philippians 4:13. I can do all this through Him who gives me strength. Or Romans 8:31. If God is for us, who can be against us? Mark 9:23. Everything is possible for one who believes. Keep in mind that it's your thoughts that determine your feelings, and by filling your mind with promises from God's Word, you can overcome discouragement. You know, for many, many years, man tried to break the 4-minute mile. And it was just generally accepted that it wasn't possible for the human body, the human being, to run a mile in 4 minutes. Until one rainy day, this had been planned for some time, and the track conditions weren't right, and there was like a fine mist in the air. I think the guy's name was Roger Bannister. I'm not positive. So there was discussion, well, maybe we better postpone this to another day, you know, conditions aren't perfect. The guy says, no, I came to do the deal. And so in less than perfect conditions, he did what no human being recorded had ever done before, the 4-minute mile. That's amazing enough in and of itself. But the truly amazing part is as the news spread that someone had actually done it, people started doing it all over the world, like it was no big deal. Because in their mind, it was an impossible thing. But once their mind was able to accept that it was possible, then those who were in proper health and had worked out and who had trained, boom, 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 boom. So where are your thoughts? Are conditions not perfect, so maybe I'll try tomorrow? Or I came here today to do this. I can do all things through God who strengthens me. Let's get it on. And that's our good word for the day. Thanks so much for tuning in. Whoever you are, wherever you are, may God continue to richly bless you with His mercy and with His grace. And I'll see you at the bell.
Remember this, there is no greater return on investment than to see a human life changed and given hope. As always, pray hard and trade safe. Any financial information discussed on this show is simply the opinion of our host, Dwayne Reeves, his co-hosts, and guests. To learn more about trading Emini Futures or to take a 1-week free trial in our live trading room, call 1-866-928-3310. 866-928-3310. Information discussed on this radio program should not be construed as a recommendation to buy or sell any security. Always do your own due diligence and consult with a licensed securities broker or financial planner before making any investment decision.